Good morning. Good morning. Please be seated. I am so honored and privileged to welcome Governor Andrew Cuomo back to Buffalo today as he shares his strong vision for building a new New York. But first, I would like to extend a special and warm welcome to some of our guests. With us today are Buffalo Comptroller Mark Schroeder, Buffalo City Council member and Majority Leader Richard Fontana, and I should have said, and Council President Richard Fontana. Let's give him another round of applause. Buffalo City Council member Michael Kearns, Buffalo City Council member David Rivera, West Seneca Town Supervisor Sheila Meagan, and Tonawanda Town Supervisor Anthony Caruana, my predecessor, former Buffalo Mayor Anthony M. Masiello, and any of my other colleagues in local government that I might have missed. The governor is here with us today to present his comprehensive blueprint for the coming year. Just recently in Albany, he unveiled his bold plan that will ensure that New York continues to attract businesses, create jobs, and grow our economy. He'll go into detail, but some highlights that affect Buffalo include a new pension tier, increased funding for summer youth employment, and of course, the governor's billion-dollar promise to help lure private sector investment to Buffalo. Yes, you can clap on that. On behalf of our community, thank you for your confidence in Buffalo and Western New York, Governor Cuomo. This is the largest investment, and no offense to any of our previous governors, but this is the largest investment that a governor has made in Buffalo and Western New York in over 50 years. Buffalo is ready for this investment, and here are some of the reasons why. Since 2006, my administration has significantly cut taxes. Buffalo has over 300 acres of remediated former brownfields, and Buffalo is home to rich historic landmarks, great colleges and universities. Our people are hardworking. Our investment in city neighborhoods and parks is at an all-time high, and crime continues to drop. I'm thankful that Governor Cuomo directed the Western New York Regional Economic Development Council to spearhead the planning for the billion-dollar investment. As a proud member of the council, we did our work last year by winning the top economic development award of over $100 million in state funding. I'd like to recognize the work of the chairs of the Western New York Regional Economic Development Council, co-chair Howard Zemsky, who is with us today, and Dr. Satish Tripathi. The governor's budget provides for remarkable investment in Buffalo so that we can build our regional economy and make Western New York stronger than ever. By all accounts, last year, Governor Cuomo had one of the most productive legislative sessions in the history of the state of New York. I certainly look forward to continuing to work with Governor Cuomo to build on these successes and make 2012 an even greater year in the history of our city, our region, and our state. I would now like to welcome the chairman of the Assembly Committee on Economic Development and the co-chair of the very effective Western New York State Legislative Delegation, Assemblyman Robin Schimminger.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor Brown. This is certainly an exciting year, Mr. Mayor, to be the mayor. In fact, this year, when the governor presented his State of the State address, I thought he was going to say that the B stands for Billions, Buffalo, and Byron Brown. You know, I'm glad your parents didn't name you Michael. Not have been good. On behalf of the 140th Assembly District and all in our delegation, welcome to Governor Cuomo. It is my privilege to be called upon to say a few words and also to acknowledge the many other members of our delegation who are here today. Assemblymember Crystal Peoples, Assemblymember Dennis Gaberzak, Assemblymember Jane Corwin, Assemblymember Joseph Giglio, no relation to that island off Tuscany, I understand, though? Nor the captain. Oh, nor the captain. Assemblymember Ray Walter, Assemblymember Sean Ryan, and Assemblymember John Cerrito. Over the past few weeks, the governor has been taking his message across the state. It is a message of reform, and we are honored that he is here today in Western New York to carry forth that message. I must say that during my tenure in the New York State Assembly, I can honestly say that I cannot think of another year that was more productive than last year, the year 2011. We were proud to be a part of New York State government once again, and it is in large measure to the leadership of Governor Andrew Cuomo at the helm of our state government. At the beginning of last year, the governor set forth a bold agenda to make New York State government a national leader. And he got it done by crossing party lines and working tirelessly with all the stakeholders to ensure that Albany became a functional operation that puts New Yorkers first. He has driven that dark cloud that at one time hovered over the Hudson, that dark cloud of dysfunction. He has sent that away. We think it's somewhere over the Potomac now, but it's not over Albany. During the last year alone, we were able to pass an on-time budget that filled a $10 billion budget gap without borrowing, without raising taxes. We reformed Medicaid in 2011. We enacted a tax cap and did so much more. And instead now of resting on his laurels, the governor is continuing to raise the bar for 2012. In his State of the State and budget addresses, he set the stage for a strong set of reforms that will help state government reach its full potential during these tough economic times. We can now begin to focus on the much-needed reforms that will reinvent government and make it more effective for all New Yorkers. The 2012-2013 state budget proposed by the executive closes a $2 billion deficit and will be a welcome relief to New Yorkers statewide. Governor Cuomo has brought integrity and a sense of purpose, he really has, back to New York State government. And I am eager to see what we can accomplish in the year 2012. It is now my pleasure to introduce another young man who had a very extraordinary year last year. This is a young man whom I met at a small fundraising event when he first ran for comptroller of Erie County. It was at the home of a man who passed away 14 months ago, Arnold Gardiner. Many of you knew Arnold Gardiner. Before I served in the Assembly, I worked for a short time at Kavanaugh Cook, where Arnold was the leading partner. Arnold was a mentor and a friend to me. Arnold was a mentor and a friend to the man I'm going to introduce. He had a big influence on his life. When this young man was elected as county executive of Erie County, I sent him a note. And on that note, I just wrote a few things. I wrote, "Congratulations, Arnold would be proud." And ladies and gentlemen, not only is Arnold Gardiner looking down very proud of Mark Poloncarz, we are all proud of Mark Poloncarz. Allow me to introduce to you our new county executive, Mark Poloncarz.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. You are right. Arnold was a mentor to not only I, but you. And if you attended a school in New York State, in some ways Arnold was a mentor to each and every one of you, because he was one of the strongest advocates to education that we had, and he is sorely missed. I want to thank everybody for appearing here today. I certainly want to thank Paul Murphy and the staff of the Convention Center for opening up their doors this morning, a county-owned facility, so thank you for being here. And it's my pleasure to acknowledge some of my fellow individuals associated with county government that are here today. We're pleased to be joined by the new chair of the Erie County Legislature, Betty Jean Grant. We're also joined by the legislature's majority leader, Tom Mazur. We are joined by Erie County Legislator Tim Hogues. We are also joined by Erie County Legislator Ed Rath. I see we are also joined by Erie County Legislator Lynn Dixon, as well as new Erie County Legislator Joseph Larigo. And of course, we're joined by Governor Andrew Cuomo. Welcome back to Western New York. On behalf of the residents of Erie County, I once again look forward to hearing the governor's plan to restore our economy, create jobs, and keep New York on the path to prosperity. As the mayor once has noted, the stars do seem to be aligning for us here in Erie County and Western New York, and especially the city of Buffalo. And much of that has to do with the renewed sense of purpose and commitment we are seeing, not only from our governor, but from our friends in New York State delegation. Last year, the governor was spearheaded with our delegation to finally make UB 2020 a reality. As an alum of the University of Buffalo, thank you for doing that. We've been talking about UB 2020 for years. Now it is a reality. With funding and support from the state, we can now strengthen our university, enhance our downtown core, as well as create new high-paying jobs for the citizens of not only the city of Buffalo, Erie County, but all of Western New York. But as was noted by the mayor as well, that wasn't all. Our very own Western New York Regional Council won over $100 million in state economic development funding as part of the governor's innovative program with regards to the regional development strategy that was new to New York State. I want to thank all the members of the Western New York Regional Council, as well as especially co-chairs Howard Zemsky and UB President Satish Tripathi for their outstanding work on our behalf of our community, and I know the work that they're going to continue to do in this upcoming year with new assistance being available. Between UB 2020 and the Western New York Regional Council, 2011 would seem like a very difficult year to top, but 2012 is already looking better. The governor's budget calls for an extraordinary investment in Buffalo that will help revitalize our city and bring back business to Western New York, combined with a push for mandate relief, which will mean in long-term, real dollars, millions of dollars of savings for Erie County. The governor is listening to what we need on the local level. I look forward to working with the governor and our state delegation to make those changes happen, to give the people of Erie County not only a government that they can look at and be proud of, but a community they can be proud of. That is why we are all in public service. Thank you, and it is now my honor to introduce the Dean of the co-chair Dean of the Western New York delegation from the New York State Senate side, Senator George Maziarz.
Thank you very much, Mark. Unfortunately, you know, when you're the last speaker before the main speaker, it's all been said before, but it can't be said enough. I want to welcome everyone here today. I want to acknowledge my colleague from the New York State Senate, who's here today, Senator Mark Rosani's. Mark. We are, all of us are extremely honored to have you here today, Governor Cuomo, and I know you are all eager to hear about his strong vision for building a new New York. I have had the distinct pleasure of serving in the New York State Senate representing Western New York for several years. But there is no doubt, as my colleague Assemblyman Schimminger said, that last year was one of the most historic in New York State history. A year ago, this governor set out to transform state government into an effective, efficient body that worked well for the people of the state of New York. And he got it done. And he did it with bipartisan support, working side by side with both houses of the legislature, both sides of the aisle. With Governor Cuomo's leadership, New York State government was able to pass an on-time budget and close that $10 billion deficit, enact a property tax cap, pass Recharge New York, legislation that's going to help small, medium-sized businesses across this state. And he signed the bill in North Tonawanda. I take it that applause was for North Tonawanda, not the bill, right, Governor? In this year's State of the State and budget presentations, the governor put forth bold proposals that reorganize government to maximize efficiency while practicing fiscal discipline by reining in spending. In addition, the governor's executive budget closes a $2 billion deficit with no new taxes or fees. New York's families and businesses cannot bear that burden any longer. Times have clearly changed. Governor Cuomo has restored a sense of pride and credibility in New York State government. That's so important. Governor Cuomo has restored a sense of pride and credibility in New York State government. He's transformed Albany, a place that was wrought with corruption and scandal, into a national model for an effective government by avoiding the gridlock and partisan politics that plagues Washington, D.C. today. I thank the governor for bringing his message of reform to Buffalo, and it is my pleasure to introduce and ask you to give a $1 billion welcome to Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, Buffalo. Good morning. It is a good morning, isn't it? Let's start with giving a great acknowledgement to the great mayor of Buffalo, Byron Brown, all B's. Mr. Mayor, our new county executive, Mark Polenkars, congratulations. Thank you for having us. My colleagues from Albany, Assemblyman Robin Schimminger, pleasure to be with you, Robin, and the other co-dean, the deans of the delegation, so we treat them with respect. Senator George Maziarz, pleasure to be with you. I am excited to be here. I am starting my second year as governor. It's only been 1 year. Feels a lot longer, especially for me. A few weeks ago, I ran into an old lady who was an old friend of mine, and I walk up to her, and she's like a little taken aback when she sees me. She was like, "Oh," and she's at a loss for words, and she says, "You know, you look more distinguished." I said, "You mean older?" She said, "That too, but more distinguished." It's only been 1 year, but it's been a long year. These jobs are like dog years, 1 year. You see, they age you. You see Mark Polenkars looks like he's 18 years old, right? Look at Mark in a couple of years, he's going to look like he's ready for retirement. But it was a very good year, and we're excited about this next year. And I believe the strength, the success that you heard about for last year is what we're going to start from this year. We're going to take that success, use that as a platform, to build on. And everything we did last year, it's just the beginning for what we're going to do this year. Now, in the beginning of the year, the chief executive lays out his or her vision for the state. Last night we heard from the president, the State of the Union address, state of the city, state of the county. And I did my State of the State address a couple of weeks ago, which is the broad vision for what we're looking to do in the state of New York. And then last week I did the budget address. And the budget address is the specifics of how you're going to implement and enact that vision. And what we did last year that worked, and what I want to do again this year, is I want to take that message, take it outside of Albany, and to bring it to communities all across this state. Why? Because it's your government. It's your government. I work for you. It's very simple. I work for the people of the state of New York. So do my colleagues who are in the delegation who are here today. This is your state, it's your life, it's your community, it's your family, and this plan is for you. So I want to know what you think. I want you involved, and that's what today is all about. We call it Building a New New York together. Before we go forward this year, a quick review of where we were last year. As you heard from my colleagues, last year the state really was at a crossroads. New Yorkers were hurting. They're still hurting today, but last year was even worse. The economy had wreaked havoc in lives all across this state. And when you look to Albany, you look to the government for help, right? Because that's when the government is supposed to be of help, when people needed it. What you saw in Albany was, again, a government that was filled with scandal and was ineffective and was rife with partisanship, where people were playing politics rather than doing the people's business. And Democrats were fighting with Republicans, and Republicans were fighting with Democrats, and the people of the state were paying the price. That was last year. We had a $10 billion deficit, which was one of the largest deficits in the history of the state. But worse than a fiscal deficit, we had a trust deficit, a performance deficit, and we had an integrity deficit. So you had a situation where people had problems, and the government didn't have the capacity or the credibility to be of assistance. That's where we started. And we had a conversation in the beginning of last year. I had the conversation with Buffalo, and I said, we're going to have a choice to make. Either we're going to remain dysfunctional and remain divided and keep playing politics, or we're going to come together, we're going to reestablish this government, and we're going to rebuild our state and move forward, and we made the right choice last year. We said we were going to change the culture of Albany, and we did. You have a government now that puts people first. Last year's legislative session was an historic success. It really, really was. Probably one of the most productive sessions in modern political history. And I thank them for that, and I applaud them for that, and your delegation was a major part of that success. And they're with us here today. You've heard from a few of them. I'd ask them to stand, and let's give them a round of applause for their good work. Thank you. George Maziarz looks good in that picture, doesn't he? Very nice. We did have a good year. And when you've heard about the accomplishments that we went through, but we closed the $10 billion deficit, we closed the budget, and we did it with no gimmicks, and we did the budget on time. We enacted the first ever property tax cap because property taxes are going right through the roof and chasing New Yorkers from their homes. And we enacted a state tax cap. We closed 3,800 prison beds that we didn't need. We eliminated the MTA payroll tax for most small businesses in the state to get that entrepreneurial engine running. We passed the toughest rent regulations in 30 years. We started the New York Open for Business campaign. We passed an affordable energy policy with Recharge New York, which Senator Maziarz was talking about. We funded desperately needed flood relief for our New Yorkers who were devastated last year in the floods, and we shouldn't forget that. We passed ethics reform to restore trust in government, and we attacked chronic high unemployment among inner city youth with the first ever jobs tax credit program targeted just to minority youth in inner city areas. So it was a great year. We also took a major step forward for social justice. We made history in the state of New York. And we led the nation, I'm proud to say, when we passed marriage equality for all New Yorkers. But that wasn't enough, and we didn't stop there. There was also a problem where for decades this state has had an unfair tax code, and the middle class was carrying an unfair tax burden. Under the old tax code, listen to this, whether you made $20,000 or $20 million, you paid the same rate of taxes in the state of New York. Can you believe that? Same rate of taxes. It was just wrong. It was just unfair. It was wrong. It went on for too long. We said enough is enough. We're going to bring fairness to New York. This is the way it should work. The more you make, the more you pay. And the more you make, the higher the rate you should pay. And we reduced taxes for the middle class to the lowest level in 58 years, believe it or not. Now, 58 years ago is so long that it's actually hard to get your head around that number, 58 years. Well, it was a long, long time ago. It was 1953, actually. Gas was 29 cents a gallon. Elvis Presley was registering for the draft 58 years ago. Jackie Robinson was playing second base for the Brooklyn Dodgers. First Corvette was created 58 years ago, a day that shall go down in history forever. I was just a twinkle in my father's eye at the time. But he had big plans for his little guy. So 2011 was a great year. We got a lot done. We accomplished much, but we've only just begun, and it's the starting point for today, and it's the starting point to get to work to build a new New York. We have big problems, but we also have big solutions. We have a three-part plan. We're going to get the economy going, we're going to reinvent the government, and we're going to keep New York's legacy as the progressive capital of the nation. First, we're going to start by building on our economic strength. New York State is a destination location. $50 billion in 2010 from tourism coming into this state. It is probably the largest single economic generator for the state of New York. But we can't take it for granted, and we have to stay ahead of the competition. Convention centers all around the world serve as magnets for tourism and trade shows and the economic activity that goes with it. At one time, we had one of the preeminent convention centers in the country, the Javits Center. But we've been surpassed over the years where we no longer are competitive for the largest conventions because we don't have one of the largest sites. Actually, New York is the 12th largest convention center behind places like Anaheim, California, which is nice. But New York should not be 12th because we can't be competitive. My proposal is very simple. Let's build the largest convention center in the nation. Let's compete for the biggest shows. Let's get that business coming to the state of New York once again. It's about jobs, and it's about tens of thousands of dollars in economic activity for the state of New York, and we should be the #1 convention site. Let's go from number 12 to number 1, and let's do it this year. New York's strength is enhanced when every region in the state is doing well. We understand that. And let's use this point in history, as you've heard, to address the crisis in Buffalo. Now, as you know and as you've heard, I've announced a very aggressive agenda for Buffalo. And I've been roundly criticized from other parts of the state that say, well, why Buffalo? Why not here? Why not this town? Why not that town? Why not my town? Why Buffalo? It's very simple. Because Buffalo needs assistance, because we're all New Yorkers, because we're one state, because when Buffalo does well, we all do well. It's one balance sheet, and when we invest in Buffalo, we invest in the family of New York, and I am proud of it. You look at the facts about Buffalo and you understand why Buffalo needs the investment of the state. It's the third highest poverty rate in the nation. 28% living in poverty, 10% population declined, while other parts of the state were actually growing. And my friends, it doesn't have to be that way. It really, really doesn't have to be that way. We know that we can have investment strategies that work. 25 years ago, the capital district, Albany, was struggling, and was struggling mightily. And the state started to invest in something called nanotechnology. Nobody even knew how to pronounce it. Nobody knew how to spell it. But it was the new industry of creating computer chips, nanotechnology. And the state started investing 25 years ago. Today, Albany, the capital district region, is the international home of nanotechnology. It has generated thousands and thousands of jobs and turned the economy around in the capital district region. It only happened because the state invested billions, with a B and with an S, billions, over the years to bring nanotechnology to Albany and the capital district region. And I'm proud of that investment the way I'm proud of the investment in Buffalo. So it works. We did it in Albany. We can do it in Buffalo. We believe in Buffalo. So let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's build on our experience, and let's invest $1 billion to bring business back to Buffalo and turn Buffalo around. That is a B for Byron and Brown and the Bills and Billion. It's for Buffalo. We're going to work with the regional council. We want a plan that's going to create thousands of jobs and spur at least $5 billion in economic activity. We're going to get serious about economic development, building on what we did last year all across the state. We're going to announce a second round of regional council zones. As you heard, Western New York won an economic development grant through what we call the Regional Council Award Program for doing a really great job. I want to do another second round for $200 million and build on our success. Another potential economic engine is casino gaming. Now, it's time we actually confronted the facts and the reality on casino gaming. According to the state constitution, the state can't have casinos. So people will say, well, we don't have casinos in New York. That is technically accurate. However, we do have tribal casinos because our Constitution didn't apply to tribal law. So we have tribal casinos, and the state found a way around the Constitution over the years. Because we couldn't have casinos, we've developed something called racinos. What's a racino? It's a casino with an R. That's what a racino is. And we have built racinos all over the state. All the neighboring states actually have casinos. So we are in the casino business, even though we spell it with an R. We have 29,000 electronic gaming machines in this state. That's more than Atlantic City has gaming machines. And these are not the old-fashioned slot machines. These machines are like virtual table games. So we are in the casino business. Now, we're not doing it well. We're not regulating it well. We're not getting the revenue we deserve. We're not protecting New Yorkers. But let's amend the Constitution. Let's acknowledge the reality. We're in the casino business, and let's do it in a way that maximizes the profit for this state and protects our New Yorkers. And I want the Assembly and the Senate and the Assembly to take it up this year, pass it again next year. There would then be a public referendum on the ballot, and let's put it to the people of the state of New York. But I say let's acknowledge the reality. We're in the business anyway. Let's do it right, and let's make the money. We also have a great opportunity to rebuild New York. We need jobs. We need to rebuild our infrastructure to be competitive and safe. When you look at the facts on the situation of our infrastructure, it's frightening. 32% of the bridges are deficient. 40% of the roads are fair or poor. 80% of the state parks and major DEC dams are in disrepair. Let's invest in the infrastructure, accelerate the infrastructure repair and renewal program, and actually generate jobs in the meantime. We have a plan that will improve over 100 bridges statewide, 9 bridges in western New York, 2,000 miles of roads, that's New York City to Buffalo and back, 290 miles of roads in western New York, 88 municipal water systems, 8 projects in western New York, and 48 state parks and historic sites statewide. It will generate jobs, and it will stimulate the economy, and we need to do it anyway. So now is the time to do it. When we talk about building the economy, the one thing every business needs is power, literally, to grow the economy and grow their business. When you look at our energy distribution system in this state, it's archaic, it's outdated, it's inefficient, and it's ineffective. Let's build a power superhighway. We have tremendous supply in northern New York, western New York. We have tremendous demand in southern New York. We just have to connect the dots and build a grid, build a system to distribute energy in this state. Eisenhower built a highway system, and that drove commerce for decades. The highway system of today is an energy highway system, is a smart grid system. Private sector companies will build it. I say let the state call them in, let them invest in it. Let's master plan, issue an RFP. We believe it can generate $2 billion in economic activity today and set the template for tomorrow for economic development. When you put all of that together, it is a $25 billion construction program, private sector incentive program, leveraged with just $1 billion in state money. This, I believe, can really give a jump start to the state economy, and I hope the legislature takes it up this year. $1.5 billion, leveraging $25 billion in activity. Part 2 is making a government work for this state. And part of it is going to be changing the focus of the government and focus on our priority, and our priority mission is public education. If you and I'm sure I speak for every one of my colleagues here today, getting the economy running, creating jobs, and then public education. That is the number 1 and number 2 issue. We talked about jobs, now let's talk about education. I learned my most important lesson being governor my first year last year, and it was in the area of public education. What I learned was education is really big business in the state of New York. As a matter of fact, it's a $20 billion business in the state of New York. And I learned that everyone in education has a lobbyist. Superintendents, they have a lobbyist. Principals, they have lobbyists. Teachers, they have a few lobbyists. School boards have lobbyists. Maintenance personnel, lobbyists. Bus drivers have lobbyists. You know the only group who doesn't have lobbyists in Albany are the students. So this year I'm taking a second job. I'm going to be governor of New York There's my daughter. But I'm also going to be the student's lobbyist on a part-time basis and serving pro bono. We have a crisis in our education system, and it starts with the culture of it. Education has become more about the business interests than the academic interests of the student. There is now a reform movement that's happening all across the country that is shifting the focus back to the student rather than the industry, and focusing on student achievement rather than industry funding as a measure of success. It's going to be a paradigm shift. Instead of thinking about process, let's start talking and thinking about results. Instead of focusing on the system, let's focus on the individual. Instead of focusing on salaries and pensions of people who work in the education system, let's also focus on the graduation rates and test results of the students who are in the education system. Rather than focusing on the bureaucracy, let's focus on the student. Rather than focusing on the adults, let's focus on the children. This was about the children. We have to shift to focusing on performance, and we have to start by having an evaluation system that measures what's happening in the classroom and what's happening in the school, so we know what's working and we know what's not working. Evaluations were supposed to be put in place 2 years ago. The federal government actually started a program that awarded states grants that had an evaluation system. We said 2 years ago we'd put an evaluation system in place. Federal government granted us the money. 2 years later, we still don't have an evaluation system. Federal government called up, they said they want the money back. Why don't we have an evaluation system? Because they can't figure it out, and the bureaucracy is resisting the evaluation system. Why? Well, it's a change, and it's different, and it's going to measure performance, and it's going to evaluate teachers, and evaluate superintendents, and evaluate schools, and evaluate principals. So there is resistance. 758 school districts in the state. You know how many evaluation systems? 0. Well, this is a crisis, and we must act. Now, I'm planning a 4% increase in education aid statewide. Why? Because we're going to balance the budget, and it's tough, but I want to invest in education because we believe in education. And school districts, on the whole, will qualify for 4% more. However, we're going to say to school districts, all 758, you can get the additional funding, but you're not going to get the funding if you don't have a teacher evaluation system in place next year, period. We'll put it on a blackboard. We'll make it very simple. Figure it out, work it out, put people in a room, hash it out, but if you don't have an evaluation system, you're not going to get that money, period. Sometimes it's that simple. Thank you. You're welcome. If we're serious about education, my friends, we have no choice. I know it sounds drastic and dramatic, but it will never, ever end. Otherwise, the bureaucracy will not reform itself. It is a $20 billion industry. It is very powerful. If the people don't demand change, it will not change. And this is the time to demand change. And we will. We also have to keep New York's progressive vision going forward. There is now a proposal that I'm very excited about that will expand the DNA data bank. DNA data bank is when people are convicted of a crime, about 50% of the crimes on the books, they give a DNA sample. That DNA sample is the great discovery in the criminal justice field. All these shows on TV where they can now track with high-tech. DNA fingerprints are the single most important tool the police have, the DAs have, the criminal justice system has, to prove guilt or to prove innocence. It's not just proving guilt. It works both ways. It proves guilt and innocence. The DNA that we've had thus far has convicted more than 2,700 people and has exonerated 27 innocent people that we thought were guilty. We want to expand the DNA data bank. It now only applies to 50% of crimes. It should apply to all crimes. The more information, the better. The more we can solve crimes by putting the right person behind bars or exonerating the wrong person, that's what we should do. Let's expand the DNA data bank to cover all crimes. We would be the first state in the nation to do it. New York should be the first. We'll lead the way once again, and let's do it this year. Second, believe it or not, with all our progress, we still have 1 out of every 6 children in homes without enough food to eat. How staggering is that? In this great state with all our great progress. Now, the federal government has a food stamp program. 30% of those people who are eligible in the state don't enroll. It's about 1.4 million people. It's $1 billion in federal funds that people would qualify for and do qualify for, but they don't apply. Why don't they apply? One of the reasons is people don't like to go to the government. They don't like to ask for help. There are certain barriers to entering one of these programs. In some areas, one of the barriers is the government requires fingerprinting. Fingerprinting, people find intrusive. It's intimidating. It's a barrier. We believe it's a barrier that is keeping people from applying. I understand it's also helpful in fighting fraud. There are other ways that you can fight fraud without fingerprinting. Every government is moving away from it. If you know you have hungry children, if you know this is a barrier, find another way to fight fraud. I want to say no fingerprinting. Let's get children the food they need, and we'll fight fraud another way. My last point is this. Change comes when you make change happen. I was listening to the president last night give a State of the Union, and he was talking about what the Congress has to do and what the presidency has to do and what states have to do. And, you know, all too often in life, we can think that it's someone else's obligation to make the change. It's someone else's job. It's somebody else's responsibility. Change starts with you. Change starts with the man in the mirror. Change starts with the woman in the mirror. Change starts with the student in the mirror. Change starts with you. Before you point fingers, and before you tell people what they should be doing and what they should be doing differently, it starts with you. We're trying to change Albany. We're trying to change the education system. Change starts with you. We need your help. You have to act. This education bureaucracy, for example, it is a powerful bureaucracy. You go to Albany, you go to the Capitol. You walk around the hallways of the Capitol, you see lobbyists everywhere. The industry has people everywhere. Why? Because it's big money, it's big business. $20 billion. How do you change it? The people are going to have to change it. The people are going to have to make their voice heard. The people are going to have to stand up and say, we care. This is our education system. It's not their education system. It's our children. And we care. And you're going to have to act. You're going to have to make your voice heard. They win in a vacuum. They win when you don't act. Change starts with you. $1 billion, we're going to turn around Buffalo. You know who it starts with? It starts with you. You have to wake up and say, you know what? I believe in this community. I believe in this city. I believe in this region. I'm not going to talk about the past. I'm going to talk about the future. You have to wake up and be committed to that vision for tomorrow. and say, I'm tired of talking about the good old days and what Buffalo was and when we had steel mills and when we did this and when we did that. That was yesterday. I'm looking forward. I'm not looking back. I want to talk about what we're going to be and what we're going to do and where the new jobs are coming from and how to keep my children here and my family here so I can say, your future is in Buffalo. Don't you dare think of going anywhere else. The future starts here. You have an extraordinary opportunity. An extraordinary opportunity. You have a great business community here that is invigorated. You have a great healthcare industry, an academic industry. You have everything you could need. You have a great cast of elected officials. Great mayor, great new county executive, great delegation, people working together. They put their politics aside. They said, forget Democrat, forget Republican. We're New Yorkers first, and we're going to act that way. You can feel the energy building. You won UB 2020. You won the Regional Council Award. It's happening. It's happening. And it will happen if you make it happen. I did what I can do. I have $1 billion because I believe in you. And the state believes in you. And we're your partner. And we're together. And we're going to invest with you. But change starts when you decide to make the change. This is an historic opportunity. An historic opportunity. The mayor said not in 50 years. This is a lot of money. And a lot of people are working very hard. Let's seize this opportunity. And let's say we're not going to build back Buffalo to what it was. We're going to build it to a height we've never reached before. Thank you, and God bless you.